My name is Morgan, 35 years old, and if you ever assumed the toilet paper industry was just for squishy tenderfeet, Jamie and I, we inherited an empire of necessity from our folks. Beneath but above all, they also left us a legacy which today we are committed to developing. In one of America's vibrant urban centers, I operate our flagship operation, and Jamie runs another branch a city or so over. We are a pair, no doubt. However, miles and obligations hold us in another situation on maximum days. But when Jamie comes round, we don't just discuss numbers and projections. Then we pause and wonder at the beginning of it as well, where our mamas watch down on us praying that they too are pleased with what from above is occurring. The branch was ticking over happily with me in charge, and my number 2 Ryan to back me up. Ryan is one of those almost mythical creatures, not just because he gets the job done, but he also gets me. His grin. Morgan, this concept is gonna take us to the moon. Me with, well, let's not start measuring ourselves for rings just yet. We were in tune, taking it to the edge and breaking shit. ANTR, B/fresh-faced and keen as mustard, technically our new sales director. But that man was all in their head, for he could talk them into believing the sky were full of shit and yen, not blue. Soon, his professional charm crossed over into personal territory, and he went all the way in on me. Morgan, we are not only creating ripples here. Tsunamis. Maybe this should be a permanent partnership. His eyes met mine and did not waver, a touch of defiance in his voice. Thinking he was joking, I laughed. Blake, you never fail to shock us. Running for president next, that's what. Yeah, right, he said with that cocky smile. We're dynamite together. The point we have should not be lost. It was a very weird offer, but I was used to being the one taking those kinds of chances. Well, I said with an uptick in my voice after realizing how ridiculous it all sounded out loud, what have we got here, Blake? In many ways, that handshake solidified not only our collective fate, but it was a sort of second act for the company as well. We got a huge sprawling house. You know the kind, like those palaces in magazines where people fold themselves into spaces to take pictures, and we were folding ourselves onto our corners. Our days were long, filled with love and the labor of one seeking greatness. A room full of luxury around us. Things were great, better than I ever dreamed they could be. 1 year inside of our whirlwind life, and then the news dropped on us, unexpected. I was expecting. I was over the moon, bursting with some form of joy you only read about in books and never really understand until it hits. The plan, or lack thereof, Blake, being the master strategist that he has presented a new plan. Cam, listen, this kid has more than earned all of you. Why do not you just for a bit step back from the hustle? His words hit me sideways. Step back and do what, Blake? Don't just sit around talking to my belly. He smirked, the smooth one. Not just that. For the MVP he will be preparing, it's temporary. I'll tell you all about it, I swear. I think the way he said it made me give in right then. Fine, but do not turn my branch into a circus. I was half joking, though mostly serious. While Blake literally picked up the reins in this branch that day, I was fully committing to pregnancy. We had some bumps along the way, though. The clinics felt like my second home, and every visit was nerve-wracking. After a grueling 6 months, mobility started to get difficult. It was like a marathon effort even for simple things. The rest of me except my body wasn't mine anymore. I was slow as a snail, but I said, guess it's just me and you, kiddo, slapping my belly, becoming more used to this slower stride of life. It only got worse for Blake, but his hours, so crazy. The nights at the office became habitual, his voice on the other line forever tired. Babe, It's slammed here. Another all-nighter might be needed. Concern still lingered, but Blake just had a way of not worrying. Don't you stress, Cam. It all for us / this shit is so confusing. That future you know what? To hell with them. Do you and the baby. But I desperately wanted to be wrong. But each don't wait up tore something small, and I stirred in the night wondering if this was how it went. But when I sat alone in that too big, too quiet house night after bleak winter night and the loneliness penetrated my flesh till it ached, eerie sounds of unfamiliar tappity taps and koshji coughs, I dialed him up to hear fixed words flowing from his practiced lips. Blake, this is not so simple 5 minutes. Seems like I am in this alone. He was quick to soothe. Doing what has to be done, Cam. Honestly, it WILALBEWORTHIT. We three, we're the cats who will melt all your cream. This was a little reassuring but also not, and I hung up feeling comforted, yet disturbed at the same time. The balm to my worries resting softly in Blake's words, though deep down things of a change struck quietly on the misty breeze, with an eerie sort of whisper that maybe it wouldn't always be WE traveling this path together. That's what I was doing one day when the doorbell rang. I slowly made my way to the door and opened it, revealing a very somber Jamie. Hey Jamie, what brings us here today with a sweet breeze of wind? Trying not to sound surprised, I said hello. Needed to see you, Cam. April 2019 time. Midday location Lincoln, Nebraska. Psalm sat the phone rang. Psalm's attention snapped from his Bible to the ringtone pulsing on our cell phones got this guy on my door proclaiming that he had deacon. We've got an issue. What? I recognized the look on his face. It was that something more than family time catch-up time thing. We were snuggled on the sofa, and he was sitting across from me all stiff like a rod. Spit it out then. What's up? It's the business, Cam. The numbers are looking grim. What's going on over there? In his human voice, with that steel edge he only used when it really mattered. Rubbing my seemingly restless belly, I sighed. Blake's been handling things. He said it's all good. Good, Cam. It's far from good. Asterisk sales decrease. Orderly delivery. Where's he been all this time? Jamie was getting red in the face, gesturing with his hands. I felt a pang of worry. He's managing it, he says to me. He's overseeing the recruiting, signed big contracts. #circle meeting. Himself picked up twitter.com/viewerjcsi5d. Jamie leaned in, locking eyes with mine. I stopped her quick. Hey listen, I know you love the kid and all, but Blake's up to something. We need to dig into this. You cannot just sit idle and watch it. All right, I'll talk to him. Oh, but you know how he is, always smoothing it over, I replied, and the weight of my world grew. Allison sat up, at the end that has to part with. Do not let this smooth talker, Cam. We cannot let everything go down to the drain, because of whatever this is. He was already out the door before I could even say goodbye. That evening, dinner was like a chess game. Or point, he was on restaurant turf as usual. Blake beamed and regaled us with office tidbits, while I, on the other hand, was storm brewing thanks to what Jamie had dropped on me earlier. Nice and smooth company, bahut acha chal rahahai bakhe. I tried, but I'm much more prodded at my food than ate it. Incomes steady, no hiccups. Blake had hardly looked at anything but his sirloin. Yeah, all good. Smooth sailing, you know? We entered our name into the competition for best executives in this city. We're killing it, babe. And he had the nerve of being somewhat confident. A cold slap in our faces. Really? Right, I miraculously choked out, my voice more parched than toast. My doubts were doing somersaults. I heard Jamie's words repeating in my head, giving a whole other meaning to them. Afterward, while Blake was singing in the shower, I picked up my phone and called Ryan, one of my ex-deputies. My heart was beating so loudly the ringtone became muffled. Ryan, it's me, I said as soon as he answered. I need the real scoop. The office, how is things going there? For a split second, long enough for me to regret dialing. Then Ryan's voice, hesitant. "Morgan, you really have to see it. It's not. It's complicated." "Complicated how?" I pushed. The frustration was seeping through. Ryan was a vault, unlocked slightly to tell me enter. Getting out of bed was literally like trying to strip away from my own shadow, thick and choking with sadness. It was a day, but not just another one. It had inscribed in it that resolution of this mess I'd been pulled into through my office meeting issue. I poured coffee into a cup in my hands, but they trembled and the black liquid was like somber thoughts bubbling away. "Morning, love." Blake's voice was too loud for the silence of our kitchen. Too cheerful, too self-absorbed. My heart was pounding against my chest like a drum, and I forced a smile. "Morning. Busy day ahead. Always. It becomes bigger and bigger. Whirlwind, high-stakes readers." That full of shit attitude spread his chest, so he looked like a rooster in a henhouse. I nodded, my brewing storm safely hidden underneath that facade of calm. When Blake got off work, I waited for him to leave the house before getting into my car. The drive to work was a blur, my hands death-gripping the steering wheel. The closer I came, the more reality hit me. This was it, the moment of truth. Ryan stood nearby, the lines of his gravity pulled tension more pronounced on his face. He greeted Morgan as if the walls were listening in, a low whisper. Iso nodded and led me to my office. She felt like an intruder in a foreign, sterile room. "It's bad, Morgan. Simi worse," he stated, moving them around like a crooked card dealer. As our team dug into the data, what was truly a disaster revealed itself. Blake's been creative in the accounting, and his team, my god, a bunch of cronies with no idea what actually goes on here. Ryan's voice was thick with disgust, fucking bleeding us dry. I felt the anger boiling in, like a Vesuvius waiting to pop. And the contracts. "Please tell me we have not blown the Ryanson account." Silence of Ryan was an answer louder than any words. Ryan dropped the biggest bombshell of all, one that hurt me to my core as we continued down this path with revelations about what state is your company. "Blake's never here, Morgan. The bastard. In fact, he ain't here now." His voice was angry and disbelieving. When I found out about that, it honestly floored me. Anxious, I pulled out my cell and dialed Blake. His voice echoed in the speaker after a couple of rings. "Hey, babe, what's up? Where are you?" I inquired, calm on the outside while a storm was brewing within. "Drowning at the office. Where else would I be?" He sounded casual, too casual. I hung up and looked to Ryan, my determination solidified. We play it smart until we determine our play." Ryan nodded, realizing the seriousness of what he was getting at. "What's the plan, boss?" I drew in a deep breath and my brain began whirring with more purpose. Step 1. Lock in our contracts. I will contact the buyers and ask for some delays where required. We need to buy some time. A few days of restless night and worry had hardened into a resolve that these early morning fog were trying to shake. The demons that had seeded in my business and life were now finally going to have a spotlight on them. I was meeting the PI I hired, someone Ryan suggested. Incognito, I walked into a coffee shop whose anonymity speaks secrets as the barista deals with grinds of dark brew. The PI, tough-looking guy with eyes that were all business, pushed a manila envelope towards me. His voice was a gravelly, cigarette and whiskey sound. "Everything you asked for is in there." My hand lingered over the envelope, and implored, needing the words to be said. "More times than one, he's been a cheating fuck," the PI added with no sympathy in his tone. "Your husband has been playing house with a co-worker. I have pictures and everything." And I felt this less than a millisecond before my heart sank, anger and betrayal mixed with an odd sense of vindication swirling in me. I thought as much, but I tried very hard to be wrong. "Show me," I demanded, my voice far sturdier than it should have been. He spread the pictures like a deck of cards, each one killing me emotionally. And there she was, laughter, touch and divide moments could have been mine, only one of our own employees, Blake. I repressed the urge to cry, to shout, and I let that rage fuel me instead. What else? I demanded, refusing to look away from the damning proof. They have been studiously careful, if inadequate. Even your husband has been siphoning company money. It seems they may have been on a little romantic retreat that the PI embarrassedly had to tell us. That was the last straw. Blake was using my business and our family's legacy as nothing more than a petty cash cow to fund his frolics. Thanks, I replied, pushing the envelope back to me. With my mind running again, I paid way more than needed for the coffee. I sat in my car and allowed myself to cry for one single moment of weakness where I could finally grieve the life that never was mine. After the tears stopped, determination replaced them. Blake and his hoe had fucked up the wrong person. I would be their new plaything, just a thing they maybe could improve to perfection. They were wrong. I called Ryan, so serene and glacial. You must also call a meeting of the TAM tomorrow afternoon. You are all required to be there, no exceptions. As always, Ryan, my solid and foundation neutral, queried not. Consider it done, Morgan. My thoughts were a blur like the drive home, devising plans. It wasn't simply revenge. It was about justice, making all the wrongs that had been committed against me and my company right. When I got home, Blake greeted me with a smile without noticing the storm in my chest. Hey, babe, long day. I mustered a smile, acting out the role one final time. You could say that. Dinner smells great. We ate mostly in silence instead. He spoke of his day, and I nodded back to him as if my life were a script. I was plotting. I guess for the whole time my mind was somewhere else. The cold glow of the fluorescents in the conference room prevailed over us. I was at the front, papers in hand, belly pregnant as all fuck to illustrate just how goddamn much I had on this particular line. With the help from Ryan, my loyal deputy, I had orchestrated this vital agenda. The room was overflowing with employees, and in the midst of them all sat Blake alongside his homewrecker of a mistress wearing their best imitation doe eyes. Cut the bullshit, I said, keeping my voice calm even though there was a fucking war in me. This has been a record-breaking loss under Blake's watch. This has affected our bottom line because those are contracts to which we have made commitments with key partners. I pressed the remote and the graphs on screen told an ugly story. 7 straight months of descent. Blake squirmed under my look, head on. This means that the drastic is necessary. With immediate effect, I am firing all of those who have led us to this decline. The room was quiet, my words settling in. I followed up with Blake. We let you go for cause, mismanagement and egregious breach of trust. I jerked my head in the direction of his mistress. You for continued truancy and complicity in this disaster, as well as boffing my husband. Suddenly, whispers filled the room as the mistress left in disgrace, with her bags packed and escaped, for all knew she was found out. His face crumpled to an uncomfortable level of red before Blake slowly, but surely rose. Morgan, you can't do this. Think before you act. His plea was met with a cold glare from me. Blake, I have pondered this long and hard. It is the only way to save that future, for this company and for our daughter. When the meeting concluded, staff members came to me, visibly and almost audibly exhaling their relief. We're behind you, Morgan. We are glad to have you back, they said, and I took solace in their backing support, my nerves only a little less tight. As I was exiting the room, Blake made a move to trap me. Morgan, for the love of *name *ITIV, can't CNWETLK. We can fix it. Blake, we are setting up the easy out. Your decisions, but that, I said, handing him a sealed envelope from the armrest of my chair, filled with signed divorce papers. With shaking hands, he accepted the envelope that only now did it dawn on him was more than just a piece of mail, watching his every move. But Morgan, No, Blake, it's over. Go now, I said in what my teachers would have termed an iron will. The dust settled, the air cleared, and before lay ruin. My refuge, the company, has faced our ruthless storm, but it was time for resurgence only to bring what happened back. The next morning when I entered the office, it was with a new step, one of confident resolve. Ryan was waiting when we arrived, an arsenal of paper unfurled across the war room. Heiner looked up as I came in and nodded knowingly at me. "Morning, Morgan. Ready to start fresh?" In fact, Ryan's voice was both a pep talk and heavy with the work facing everyone. I threw my bag onto the street and started rolling up his sleeves of my jacket. "Let's get to it. We have a mountain to climb." Number one was clearing up damage. Those close to bailing on us themselves. I led, earnest in my tone yet apologetic with eyes that seemed hopeful. "Listen, I know we've really dropped the ball here, but rest assured that whilst it's taken a little while, this time I'm back in the saddle and ready to put things right." This was me on my phone addressing our biggest customer at Thompson, no relation, just two lucky owners of awesome surnames. And of course he was hesitant. "Morgan, your shop is a shadow of itself." "Yes, I do, and I'm not trying to excuse myself. I'm here to offer solutions. Let us show you that we are still the company you loved and trusted." He sighed almost an eternity later. "All right, Morgan. We'll give you one more shot. Don't let us down." The conversations walked on a tightrope, one by one, negotiations and reassurances ready to tip over at the smallest miscalculation. After that, it was always a celebration to retain each client, soothing the still open wounds of betrayal. Ryan and I then began our conversation with the team. The room was quieter now, lacking a background buzz of productivity. Now, the few employees that were left felt confused and uncertain of their fate. "You all have been through a lot," I said to the gathered team, my voice echoing in the mostly empty office. He'd been tied up, gagged and hung, dangling from the gently swaying tree above us. "But I can tell you this, we will rise stronger than ever." A murmur of assent swept the room with a spark is something like hope igniting in their gazes. "We are all in this together, back to basics and focusing on what made us great," I told them, each looking into their eyes. The team banded together, the mission reborn. We threw ourselves into work, days blurring into nights as we navigated our path towards security and prosperity. The moment my baby boy Jesse was born, he instantly became everything. We came to the conclusion that working from home was us best, sustainable, balancing taking care of a newborn and steering my company back on track. My rock in all this chaos, Jamie also began to make more and more appearances. Not just for work anymore, but something about him being there was clearly doing us good. "And sis, you are not alone. We're a team, remember?" At the threshold of my door, grocery bag in one hand and toys for Jesse in other, he'd remind me every time. The clean-cut divorce from Blake, which was long overdue. The court not only awarded me the divorce, but they also nailed Blake on his cheating. He had to pay back every penny he stole from the company for all suffering his actions caused. "I'm sorry, Morgan. Please, I beg you to give me another chance since," he begged, trying anything that would work. But my mind was made up. Jesse needs a hero, not an adulterous bitch for his mom, I said before exiting out of that chapter in my book. Besides Samantha being there for me in the beginning after Lid was born, and I learned how to properly hold her with the help from Nanny. With half days, I could spend my mornings with Jesse and the second part of my day working. It gave me a peace and focus that I had not experienced in some time. Building the trust is much more difficult than you could ever imagine. I learned that the hard way. "Ryan, we are getting our ship in shape," I declared over another of the many video calls to my deputy. "I am done with blind faith. Any decision that needed to go ahead, and it came before me. Clear as crystal, Morgan." Ryan always found a way to be supportive, one hand holding the other in his since unwavering loyalty and sturdiness. The company wasn't only afloat, it was doing better in ways I had not thought attainable after such betrayal. It was a time of shifting seasons, and soon the next chapter in my life. Where he once felt like the walls were closing in around him was now a utopia of serenity and growth. What was now making the rounds at the water cooler wasn't stock or mergers, but karma. Mistress of my ex-husband, cast off, abandoned, divorced, cautionary tale for karma. His phone vibrated a few times, Blake calling him for days on end the toll, and Pattern making his name appear occasionally on screen in flashing red make or break fonts, as doubtless he was begging to be one of many last chances. After a few tries, my conviction only gathered in its momentum so much as that it all ended with me hitting block for the very last time and cut off the past entirely. And Jesse, his vibrant laugh and limitless energy lightened up my apartment so completely that I could no longer see any of the darkness left over from those turbulent years. Every day with him was as if he gave me a gift, took me on an adventure, and created the future filled of love, good values for us to grow from each hardship. Jamie began to come over more frequently, and with every visit his presence alone not only reminded us of the bond we had, but validated it, because despite all the fires our relationship has been through, what was forged from that fire burned strong. Jamie became as regular a visitor. "You're doing amazing, sis." He patted Jesse on the head. "You're a fortunate guy to have him," and that ebullient giggle in response. "Doing well, aren't we, pal?" And I would answer, my heart so full your baby seemed God tier. The business wasn't merely surviving, it was thriving. Jamie and Ryan by my side, we overcame those obstacles with fire in our bellies, making lemons into lemonade. So I sat there in the quiet of night with my son beside me and whispered a promise into that darkness, a vow to keep on going forward, one day at a time. Everything was overwhelming now, but everything also had joy where before it did not, and reminded myself never lose courage nor foresight to let go ever again.